In the middle of one of the most hostile deserts on Earth, a country announced it would build something that had never existed in human history. Not a city, not a tower, a wall. 170 kilometers long, 500 meters tall, and 200 meters wide. 9 million people would live inside it. There would be no cars, no roads, no pollution, powered entirely by renewable energy. A perfect city, engineered from scratch. $500 billion. The deadline? 2030. The name? The Line. Today, the construction site is silent. The workers are gone, the cranes are still, and $50 billion has already been spent on almost nothing. This is the full story of how the most ambitious construction project in human history collapsed before it even began, and why the warning signs were there from day one, if anyone had been willing to look. To understand why the Line failed, you first need to understand what made it so intoxicating. January the 10th, 2021. Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman walked onto a stage and unveiled a project that the world could not stop talking about. A linear city, a single continuous building stretching 170 kilometers across the desert of northwest Saudi Arabia. From the Hejaz Mountains all the way to the shore of the Red Sea. Inside, stacked residential neighborhoods, schools, hospitals, parks, all within a 5-minute walk of every resident. Beneath, a high-speed transit system, connecting end to end in under 20 minutes. Around? Nothing. No urban sprawl, no highways, no carbon. The exterior? 2 parallel walls of mirror glass, each one reflecting the desert and sky. From above, the Line would be almost invisible, a perfect mirror, disappearing into the landscape. Bin Salman described it as, and I quote, "the most livable city on Earth by far." The project was called MEAM, meaning New Future, in a mix of Greek and Arabic. It was the centerpiece of Saudi Vision 2030, the Crown Prince's master plan to end the kingdom's dependence on oil revenue and reinvent Saudi Arabia as a global innovation hub. And for a moment, the world believed it. Architects celebrated it. Engineers debated it. The media covered it breathlessly. But underneath all of that excitement, the numbers told a very different story. A story that some engineers saw immediately, and that the Saudi government did not want anyone to say out loud. Let us start with something simple: scale. The Burj Khalifa, the tallest building in the world, took 6 years to build. It required 12,000 workers on site every single day, and it stands 828 meters tall. The Line is 500 meters tall and 170 kilometers long. To build it on the timeline announced, engineers calculated you would need to complete the equivalent of the Burj Khalifa every single week, every 4 years straight. That is not an engineering challenge. That is a physical impossibility. Professor Mike Cook, a visiting professor of engineering at Imperial College London, reviewed the plans and said, and I am paraphrasing here, that building something of this scale within a few years was, in his words, unrealistic. That is a professor at one of the world's top engineering universities, being as polite as he possibly could. Then there is the geology. The Line crosses 3 completely different geological environments. Hard granite bedrock in the mountains, soft alluvial desert sand in the middle, loose coastal sediment near the Red Sea. You cannot use a single foundation design across all 3. The pile foundations required to anchor a 500-meter structure to bedrock are fundamentally different from what you need in sand. Rod McDonald, a professor at Heriot-Watt University's School of Geoscience and Engineering, also flagged significant geographical and seismic concerns about the route. The Hejaz Mountains are not seismically stable. They sit on ancient fault lines. A continuous, rigid structure of this length in an earthquake-active zone would be subjected to differential ground movement, different sections moving at different rates during a seismic event. No structure of this type or scale has ever been engineered for that challenge before. And then there is the heat. Summer temperatures in the Tabuk region reach 45 degrees Celsius. The line is effectively a greenhouse, a glass-enclosed corridor in one of the hottest places on the planet. Cooling 9 million people inside a mirrored glass box in the middle of the Saudi desert while running entirely on renewable energy would require a cooling system with no precedent in engineering history. No independent analysis has ever confirmed that the thermal engineering is even theoretically achievable at the proposed scale. These were not minor technical hurdles. These were fundamental, systemic problems, visible to any qualified engineer who looked at the plans. And yet, the project moved forward because the man backing it did not want to hear no. When the line was announced in 2021, the official budget was $500 billion. That number was wrong. Before construction even began, internal NEOM documents circulated among senior project staff placed the realistic budget at $1.6 trillion, 3 times the official number. Then the auditors looked more closely. A full internal audit revised the estimate again. The real cost, if the line were ever completed in full, $8.8 trillion. To put that in perspective, that is larger than the entire economy of Germany. It is more than a third of the United States' entire national debt. It is 17 times what the original announcement said. And then in 2025, the Wall Street Journal obtained an internal audit of NEOM's finances. And what they found was not just a cost overrun. They found evidence of deliberate manipulation by the project's own management. The money was not just running out, the numbers had been falsified. Meanwhile, oil prices had been falling. Saudi Arabia's fiscal break-even, the oil price it needs to balance its national budget, sits around $80 per barrel. In 2024 and 2025, oil prices repeatedly dipped below that level. The money that was supposed to fund NEOM was shrinking at the exact moment the project needed it most. By April 2025, NEOM had quietly cut its workforce by 35%. 1,000 employees were relocated from the construction site to Riyadh, effectively ending any serious on-site activity. And then, on September the 16th, 2025, the Saudi Public Investment Fund formally suspended all construction on the line until further notice. Before we talk about what is left of the project, we need to talk about the people who paid for it with something more than money. The land that NEOM occupies was not empty. It was home to the Huaytat, an indigenous tribe that had lived in the Tabuk region for generations. When NEOM was announced, their villages were designated for demolition. The families were ordered to leave. Some went quietly. Some did not. Abdul Rahim al-Huwaiti was a member of the tribe who began posting videos on social media in April 2020, publicly refusing to leave his home. He described what was happening to his community. He demanded the world pay attention. He was shot and killed by Saudi security forces in his home on April the 13th, 2020. His brothers, Shadli and Ibrahim, along with another tribe member named Ataullah, were later sentenced to death for their resistance. 15 other members of the tribe received prison sentences of up to 50 years. In total, the village of Kayal, one of the communities demolished for NEOM, was razed to the ground, its residents imprisoned or scattered. And separately, A documentary released in 2024 alleged that more than 21,000 migrant construction workers from South Asia may have died during the NEOM construction process. That figure has not been independently verified, but it has not been denied either. These are not footnotes in the story of The Line. They are the story. Behind every mega project of this scale, there are people who never make it into the renders. $50 billion later, what does The Line look like today? From a satellite, you can see it clearly. A massive trench cut into the desert floor, running for several kilometers from the coast. Concrete pile foundations, partially driven into the ground and then stopped. Heavy machinery parked and silent. Worker camps empty. The only confirmed completed section is 2.4 kilometers, out of the planned 170. That is 1.4% of the total vision. The original plan called for 1.5 million residents by 2030. That figure was quietly reduced to 300,000. Then work stopped entirely. As of March 2026, no construction is taking place. The strategic review ordered by the Public Investment Fund has not produced a public conclusion. Architects are reportedly working on a redesigned, more modest version of the project. What that version looks like, nobody outside Saudi Arabia officially knows. What we do know is this: the 2034 FIFA World Cup is scheduled to be hosted in Saudi Arabia. One of the planned venues was a 46,000-seat stadium suspended 350 meters above the ground, at the top of the line. That stadium does not exist. Its foundations are partially dug, and the World Cup is 8 years away. There is also one genuinely interesting development in all of this. Reports from early 2026 suggest that Saudi Arabia may pivot the NEOM infrastructure toward something far more practical: a massive AI data center hub, cooled by seawater from the Red Sea. Not a city for 9 million people, but a computing infrastructure for the global AI economy. Whether that happens, we will be watching. So what is the final verdict on The Line? Was it a vision? Yes, a genuine, audacious, unprecedented vision. Was it a lie? Parts of it, almost certainly. Was it a failure? That depends entirely on what you measure. If you measure it against the renders, against the 9 million residents, the mirrored glass wall to the horizon, the Hyperloop train, then yes, it has failed, almost completely. If you measure it against what it was really about, announcing Saudi Arabia to the world as a place of bold ambition, attracting global investment and attention to a country that needed to reinvent itself, then The Line did exactly what it was supposed to do. The renders were not architecture, they were marketing. The tragedy is everything in between. The $50 billion already spent and largely wasted. The families displaced and imprisoned. The workers who did not make it home. The engineers and architects who signed confidentiality agreements and watched in silence as something unbuildable was sold as inevitable. The Line is the story of what happens when unlimited power meets unlimited ambition, with no one in the room willing to say, "This cannot be done." The desert does not lie. It is still there, waiting. If this video made you think, subscribe to Titan Projects, hit the bell, because every week on this channel we go deep on the mega projects that shaped our world, and the ones that tried to. Drop your answer in the comments. Was The Line ever meant to be built? Or was it always just a very expensive render? I want to read every single one. I will see you in the next one.